So that is me stepping out of a moving plane. Thankfully, I'm wearing my goggles because you can't see the fear in my eyes at this point. Then I actually jump off the plane, and from the way I'm kicking my legs, you can tell that I'm in pure panic mode right now. Then I'm spinning out of control, making it impossible to deploy a parachute safely without having a malfunction. Now, the question you might be having as you're watching all of this is, how did I get here? So let's rewind a little bit and get to that. So when I was 17, I posted this list on social media of 3 things that I wanted to do absolutely before I die. The first one was dunking a basketball, which is kind of hilarious because someone with my body type was hoping to do that. The second one was traveling the world, which has somehow worked out over the years. Now, the third one, let's just call it a mystery goal. But a prerequisite for me to obtaining this mystery goal has been getting a skydiving license. Now, for the rest of my life after that, I was unable to pursue a skydiving license because it was just so expensive in the US. It cost up to like $5,000. And when I lived in the US, I did not have the money to do that. But thankfully, because of my YouTube career, finally someone sponsored me to do the whole skydiving license progress. And also for another very important reason that I'll talk about in the end of the video, I felt like this is the right time for me to do this. So I flew all the way to Arizona in the US to get my skydiving license. And this is not a clickbaity title. This actually turned out to be the hardest thing I've ever done mentally and physically, in terms of activities at least. And this is how it unfolded. So I just landed in Phoenix, Arizona. This is actually my second time in the city. I was here 8 years ago on the way to Mexico City. So Phoenix is normally supposed to be the hottest city in America. And last time I was here, I think it was 125 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. But right now, the weather is much better. Just picked up my bags. Now I'm waiting for my Uber. It's gonna pick me up and take me to somewhere else in the city of Phoenix, where I'm gonna pick up my rental that I'm gonna use to be driving around for the next couple of days. And then I'll head to the middle of the desert, where I'll be spending, I think, the next 7 or 10 days. So my Uber just dropped me off here, and I am renting out a Tesla Model 3 for the next week. And I've never driven an electric car before. And the key goes here, or like, what was it?
So there's no keys. All you have to do is put your foot on the brake and it'll start right up. Yep.
Okay, someone actually came and helped me out and taught me how to use this car, which is great. So it is almost 6 p.m. and I just made it to my Airbnb. I think I'm just gonna go in and just crash for the night because tomorrow's a big day. And this is Eloy, Arizona, by the way, which is like this town in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what else is here except for the skydiving place. Okay, it's 7:30 a.m. and my room's pretty messy because I slept for like 12 hours straight. Now I'm gonna go straight to the drop zone to start off my training. Actually, it looks pretty nice with the lighting over here. I think we're here. We're at Skydive Arizona. Now I gotta lock the car, which I think is... Oh. There's a whole little complex around here with a swimming pool and stuff. I need to figure out where exactly I need to go. I checked in, met all the people, and they gave me this like document with tunnel objectives and other stuff I guess I need to start the training. I'm not getting in a plane today, but I will get in a wind tunnel. That should be cool. So first I spent a few hours in the classroom, and then it was on to the practical stuff.
Yeah, just like
so it's 2:20 p.m. right now. I just spent the whole day at training, like the last 6 hours. Now I'm heading to the wind tunnel right over there to get like my first ever training with my feet off the ground. So I got geared up and got into a wind tunnel. So it's 4:30 p.m. and we just got done with like tunnel training. And for lack of better words, I'll say that was quite the humbling experience. You know, I thought I'd be good at this because I do other sports and stuff. I was easily the worst out of 5 people or 6 people, but I did get slightly better at the end. We went 5 different times, 2 minutes each. And I think one of my issues, I forgot like a lot of the hand signs when I went in there. The guy was telling me to do some stuff and I just couldn't understand. He wanted me to like arch my back more. But at the end, like when I started doing that, it was a lot easier. And there was this one girl at the beginning who kind of like dislocated her shoulder on the way out. I think she's on the way to the hospital right now. That really rattled me. That like threw me off so much that I think I was kind of scared for like the rest of the session. They actually had a sign saying like, don't go in there if you previously dislocated your shoulder or something. You can do more tunnel training just to get better, which is something I'm really considering doing. Although it costs like $100+ at the minimum to do like 5 minutes of tunnel time, but I think it might be worth it. I'm gonna actually head to my car, get some proper food because I've only had snacks the whole day, like Doritos and Lay's. After that, I'm gonna study for this because there's like a lot of information. Honestly, it was so jam-packed. I don't know if I can capture this well with my camera, but the mountains here and the landscape are just insanely gorgeous. This is so pretty. Okay, it's day 2 and I think I'm about to start the day with an actual skydive, but a tandem jump with someone attached to my back. I think it's good that they require you to do something like this before they like let me out of the plane on my own, like come down a parachute on my own. Okay, so just waiting for my tandem and reviewing all my stuff now. There's so much stuff to review. I need to do some quizzes before my first actual jump.
How are you feeling right now? This is a wild journey you're about to undertake.
The closer it gets, the more nervous I'm getting, but it's a good kind of excitement, you know, like I'm psyched. We got on my first plane ride to 14,000 feet on a jam-packed plane. There's less space in these planes than I expected there to be. Then I got strapped onto my instructor for the tandem jump and it was time to head out. Now over here, if it looks like I'm scared, it's because I am terrified. From the beginning, this was the most intense experience of my life until that point. This is what someone having a mini heart attack looks like. So after about 50 seconds, for the first time ever, I pulled my parachute.
How are you feeling right now?
That was the wildest high I've ever felt.
It's crazy, right?
That's insane. That was insane. That was so much at the same time, but shaking from the adrenaline. That was so much fun. I think I just finished the tandem skydive an hour and a half ago, and man, that was so much fun and so much more intense than I was expecting. I read stuff somewhere that like, oh, it doesn't feel like a roller coaster, it's not that intense, you reach terminal velocity, blah blah blah. No, it's way more intense than any roller coaster. I mean, you're jumping out of a plane, you're supposed to be. I'm glad there was someone with me. I'm glad there will be someone with me for the first couple of jumps, because I think it's like a lot of balancing, and like the wind's like coming up in your face like that, and then like there's like snot flying out of my nose and everything. And then when we like pulled the parachute, that's when I was like, woohoo! At the end is when I messed up a bit. I think we're supposed to do a walking landing. My tandem guy ended up on top of me. I was so like overwhelmed by emotions when it happened. Like it was fun, but it was so much. I asked for a break so I could gather myself before I like go ahead and do my first jump. Then we did some drills on this practice plane to make sure I know what to do, and we looked at my landing pattern on a parachute because I'd be doing that part by myself. And I got on my gear, had everyone check my gear to make sure everything was right. We got on the plane and it was time for my first ever jump without someone strapped onto me. For this part, they were both holding on to me to make sure that like I don't do anything wrong or go out of control. And I did some practice touches of what I need to pull out to deploy my parachute. At the end, I did deploy it. I want to explain again why I was so scared about parachute malfunctions and why I was panicking. So in this video, my friend Joseph is actually recording the video. Now he has over 7,000 jumps and he's a professional. And even though he was doing everything right, 1 in 1,000 times, something bad happens, like this one. So over here, when he deploys his parachute, he has a parachute malfunction, like a ridiculous line twist, which makes him like spin around crazily in the air. And usually there's a way to like cut out the main parachute and release the backup parachute, but that line twist was so violent, it kind of moved his vest to the side from what I understood, so it was hard to reach over there. But thankfully, after like swinging around a couple of times, he was able to finally like cut it away, and then he was able to like deploy his reserve parachute and breathe a sigh of relief. Woo! Thankfully, he was able to land safely, but this is why you have to take your lessons very seriously when you're learning to skydive. Being prepared for the moment is what is going to save you from death if something goes wrong. I'm back at what is becoming my debrief space. I just did my first jump ever without someone attached to my back, and that was just insane. That's a different kind of high. I don't think I've ever felt anything like that before. Apparently I messed up on the way out. I didn't like go out when I was supposed to, but I did the most important things right, which is like deploy the parachute at 5,500 feet. And basically the parachute stuff, I guess I wasn't really sure where exactly to be. Eventually, you know, I figured it out and I did my turns a bit lower, but my instructor thankfully was guiding everything at that point, you know. So I wasn't too stressed because my instructor was helping me out. And you know, you could tell you're going fast when you're landing, but like not fast enough to die. Like I could break a few bones for sure. The landing was not ideal.
Hold.
and now I gotta do it again in like, I don't know, like 30 minutes. So I need to start studying for my second test. I haven't eaten anything all day except for like a bag of Doritos and a peanut butter sandwich I had in the morning. Now I'm just having a Coke instead of a Diet Coke this time because I need the calories. I feel a lot better about this one than the last one. Okay, now I was getting ready for my next jump again. We got on the plane, going through the different steps with my instructor. Then it was time to go again, this time with one instructor holding on to me. You can see that I'm not very stable. I'm like just, you know, like teeter-tottering up and down. That's not what's supposed to happen. And even when I'm pulling the parachute, you can see that I'm not very stable, but I pull the parachute. That's the most important part. Okay, it's 5:20 and the sun is setting right now, so I gotta get this over with before it gets dark and cold again. I just did my second jump and a lot went into that, obviously. By the way, I'm the lightest person here, so I always like stay up in the air longer than anyone else. I also have one of the biggest parachutes because I'm like just starting off. And this time was the first time they were letting me do it by myself. Last time I was like very much control on the radio. They were like turn left, turn right. I was very comfortable with my parachute. I was like, okay, I'm exactly where I wanna be, except I wasn't when I was too low. And then I didn't really know the correct way to fix my landing pattern, and I went way too far. So everyone's supposed to land over there in the grass, but what I ended up doing is going like into the bushes, and then I turned around and that's when like they were radioing me in, and my guy was like, my instructor was like, I don't know if you're gonna make it. I'm like, oh really? I think I was trying to avoid a bunch of bushes, like the ones right here, but I ended up like hitting, I think one of these ones, must have been the big one, or basically scratched my butt on the way down and then like fell, kind of honestly, I think like 5 to 8 feet. Hurt my knee, but also like scratched up my knuckles. But honestly, if that's all I have to deal with, I'm fine with that. No broken legs, I'll just put a glove on. I see why people wear protective gloves now. I dropped so far from the green grass that they had to send a truck to pick me up with my parachute gear. That was really funny. Man, I was so scared that I wasn't gonna be able to do like that first jump that I even didn't book an Airbnb beyond the next 3 days because I was like, okay, if I fail at everything, makes no sense if I have like a non-refundable booking till like a certain date. And now I had to book after that first jump. I had to call my landlord and be like, hey, my Airbnb host, and be like, hey, do you have a spot? And that's how unconfident I was in my abilities till I did that first jump without a tandem. I just feel way more relaxed, man. Like that first jump was the most stressful thing ever. After that, I feel like I got this. Another really important thing that I learned today is that hiking shoes do not work for skydiving. They're too big and bulky, and just my ankle got sprained on the plane the first time. Thankfully, they had these other extra shoes that were just my size at the office that I'm able to borrow for my dives. Okay, so it's day 3, 7:45, and I'm just getting ready to go do another jump, and this is the jump that most people fail, so hopefully I don't f this up. Then it was time for more drills. Quick gear check and we're on the plane again. This time I jumped off again with the goal to be stable with the new instructor. I messed this one up so bad, and it was to an unacceptable level.
It looks like you understand the pattern's gonna be where your final is in the north.
But the silver lining here was my first ever clean landing.
Punch it hard, punch it hard, punch it and hold it, punch it, punch it, punch it. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, Nadir!
I was so worried about keeping the correct position, so my instructor would let me go. I forgot a very basic thing, which is like a safety procedure. You touch the thing you're gonna throw out 3 times, and by the time I remembered it, like 30 seconds into my dive, it was too late, so I'm gonna have to repeat it. This is the first time I messed up and I repeated. Usually if you failed an instructor jump anywhere in the US or probably in the world, you pay an extra $200, so it can be an expensive mistake. But mistakes are part of the game. It's good to make them early when you have instructors with you and get them out of the way, then like do it late. Okay, so I did 2 more jumps after that, but I only got 1 of them on camera, and that's the one that I also happened to fail while on camera. You can see my instructor Emily's holding on to me. That's not a good thing. Okay, so it's 1:09 p.m. and I'm done jumping for the day. The first one I actually passed the one that I messed up the first time, so I was allowed to progress. But the next jump I had to go like so fast. I'm not very good at falling, or not falling fast enough or stable enough. And how they explained it to me basically was that because I am so light, because I'm like super skinny, I'm not tall at all, I'm like 5'8". Even for that height, I'm like really light. I think I'm like 125 pounds. So because of that, I fall really slow, and I'm not as stable as, in their words, as someone with like a beer belly would be, because their center of gravity is like more towards the center. Mine's kind of just more spread out. So they want me to be falling with more stability before they let me off to to the next round because more complicated maneuvers are involved and I really need to be able to get back to stability for that kind of stuff. They told me to like practice for 15 minutes again in the wind tunnel. So I failed again. Yes, I have to redo this one too. Okay, I'm back in the wind tunnel and I just booked like a 10-minute session. So which I'm gonna do in like 2-minute breaks. Just balancing yourself on the wind. More exhausting than I thought it was. I'm basically gonna try to get better at this so I don't have to redo any of my lessons again. It costs $190 including coaching fees just to do this, but as expensive as that sounds, that is cheaper than having to redo a bunch of the lessons in the sky with a skydiving instructor. So this is the cheapest way for me to finish this course. Okay, it's day 3 or 4, whatever it is. I'm gonna do my D1 again. That's gonna be checking the ground space, checking for clouds, checking for other canopy, locating the drop zone, and then jumping. So we did another jump again, but my instructor again just felt like I wasn't arching enough and I wasn't stable enough for her to let me go, which means that I failed again. And the landing this time was far from ideal. So I went out there and I failed my Cat D1 jump again. So I'll have to redo it again. And I just did some tunnel time. I had to change up like my techniques of doing things. We need to try something different to like keep me stable. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot of tunnel time and I can see why. I've seen very few young people actually doing this as a sport because this stuff is expensive. It adds up. Unless you're like perfect about it, which I am not clearly. A lot of people aren't. This can get pretty expensive. This time I was training with someone who was coordinating with my instructor Emily on what exactly I need to do to pass the next level, like working on my weaknesses and trying a different technique with my hands closer together that would help me stay more stable. The next 2 days the airport was closed and I knew that I wasn't still ready to actually get back in the air. I knew I wasn't stable enough, so I went back to the tunnel again. I knew I wasn't ready enough yet, so again I was back in the tunnel working on my stability with some drills. And you know, on this day for the first time you can see me sort of like moving up in the air at a steady elevation and moving around a bit. For the first time also they trusted me enough to leave me alone in the tunnel by myself. But you know, just in case I wasn't ready, I came back in the tunnel the next day again. And this was easily my best day in the tunnel so far, and you can see me moving around a lot faster. You can also see me doing some turns, but obviously not everything was ideal, like this very embarrassing moment right here. Okay, so it's been exactly 7 days since I started the ground school, the on-the-ground training for skydiving, and I just finished my 6th tunnel session, making it a total of 60 minutes in the tunnel, and I'm feeling a lot more confident. Let's hope this translates into the air and I don't fail another test again. So I was back the 3rd day to try this level D1 again, and I failed again. But she said this time I was actually better. And she said it might be because I'm not practicing with a fake rig. So I failed again. I was way better than before, but I was struggling to balance apparently because the rig was too big and I couldn't pull the chute properly. That's a big no-no. So I am going to practice with a fake rig and see how this goes. So I was doing all of this with a fake rig now, still not sure if I'd pass the next day. But the next day I did another jump in the morning and I didn't get this one on camera, but it was a really big moment during my training. I didn't even bring my main camera today, so I'm filming with my phone because I thought I wasn't gonna pass again. But after failing 3 times, I passed D1. So I could have gone on to the next progression, but I decided to come back to the tunnel again and practice more jumps just to make sure that I passed the next stage of jumping. So the next day I felt a lot more confident, went over what I'm gonna do with Emily again, and then finally climbed out of the plane and jumped out. So at first I was doing okay with this jump in getting imbalanced and stabilizing, but then like my goggle kind of moved to the side and like the wind buff that I was using to cover my face sort of got in there. So my instructor had to come and help me so I could like see. So unfortunately, even though this was a malfunction, this was an automatic fail. So I had to repeat it. At least the landing again was a smooth one. Just to be safe, I got back in the tunnel for session number 10 that same day to work on some things a little bit more. We also worked on moving back and forth inside the tunnel. The next day again, it was time to try the same jump again, and this is that famous jump from the intro. Although I did the first task right, I ended up spinning out of control a bit again and needed help from my instructor to stop. So this was again an automatic fail, unfortunately. At least at this point I was starting to nail the landings right, except for this one where I slipped on a slippery patch.
Almost a clean landing.
Yeah, almost.
Okay, so it was back to the tunnel for tunnel session number 11. We're just knocking down all kind of different movements in the air to ensure that I remain stable no matter what happens. Now it's time for another jump. On the third attempt, I finally passed this level. I was able to do like different kinds of flips and find stability again. Then I did another jump after that, like an hour later. Alright, so I finally passed a couple of jumps today after failing them for weeks and weeks and weeks. Until literally 2 days ago, I was afraid to look out of the plane when it's my turn to jump. I would just like look away until it's my turn to jump. And today I was jumping like face first, diving out of the plane. I think just knowing that I have the ability to control myself and stabilize gives me an extra bit of confidence that I didn't have before. Don't get me wrong, this is still the scariest shit I've done in my life. If the scariest shit or the most adrenaline shit I've done before. Yeah, I'm vlogging. How are you doing?
Can I get your YouTube channel?
Yeah, for sure.
What is it?
My name is Nadir, so it's Nadir on the go. Want to be on video?
Yes.
Okay. What's your name?
Johnny?
Johnny, okay. Alright, Johnny found out about my YouTube. Alright, man, take care. That's cute. I'm in front of a McDonald's right now, by the way, because like, my food's waiting in there. This sport was so humbling. It is so hard and something that I had no skill in when I started, which is, I guess, not that surprising, but like skills from any other sport I have played did not transfer over at all. I'd say like the scariest thing I've done in my life until skydiving, in terms of like an activity, I would say if that was a 9 out of 10, jumping out of a plane every single time is like 900 out of a 10. Even like when I was doing the tandem jump with someone attached to my back, that was still like so intense, such an adrenaline rush. But I think I'm finally on the right path and I'm about to go finish it. Yeah, for sure, I'll do it. The next day was a packing class where I had to learn to pack my own parachute. I'm not the best at remembering details on the spot, but I was trying my best to follow instructions. But a part of me knew that I wasn't going to be packing my own parachute anytime soon. So maybe I wasn't as laser focused as I should have been. And then at the end, my teacher put like a sticky note with my name on it on the bag that I packed and told me I'm jumping with that thing the next day on my first jump. I started to panic a little bit, honestly. The next day I went over all kinds of parachute malfunction procedures and I used the parachute that I packed and jumped out in the morning. Thankfully my parachute worked, but it was soon time to try another jump.
Working on tracking, again the hop and pop exit.
So you can see just how stable I am at this point compared to before. And on these jumps, I was working on falling faster and slower. Right after that, less than an hour later, it was time for another jump. The progress was really starting to speed up at this point. Now here I was learning to move horizontally, move ahead and cover a lot of distance because you want to be able to do that and stay as far as possible from other people that are deploying their parachutes just so you can land safely. Today was one of the biggest days, my biggest day technically of jumping so far. So finally, I'm on phase 2 of the training, which means I don't have to wear like a goggle and that open helmet that you wear in a scooter in Indonesia, and I don't need a radio anymore, and I can rent out one of these for 15 bucks a day. So we started off this morning when it was very cold. We did like 5 jumps in 5 hours, which is a lot. The most I've done in a day before is like 3. So it was pretty cold when we started. It was like a few degrees above freezing this morning, and now it's like 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 degrees Celsius, and hot. I'm gonna get a sunburn by the time I'm done filming this. The desert weather is weird. So at first we did like a few regular coach jumps. The final couple, I went down to a smaller parachute, which makes me fall faster, but that is more appropriate for my weight. And then there were 2 hop and pop exits, which were basically like simulating an emergency exit. Like you don't really do anything, you just like jump out at 5,500 feet, which is like I think 1,500 meters, instead of like 3 times the height that we usually jump at. And we don't have time to do anything, we just like jump out, and you're supposed to like deploy in 5 seconds. Both time, to me, it felt like an eternity before I pulled. Apparently it was 5 seconds, so I guess I did it right. Now I'm done for the day. My whole body's so sore. My shoulder's so damn sore from like just skydiving. 5 jumps in 5 hours is a lot, like, you know, because I land and then it takes a while to take that stuff. It's like a heavy parachute, like 20 pounds on your back, to the packing area, get the new parachute rig, check it for like any problems, and then it's basically time to go. I barely got time for a bathroom break. So the next day we did a lot more jumps again with the new helmets. You can see that we're starting to get creative with coming out of the planes in different ways. You can see that I was not always as relaxed as I should have been. And we're mainly working on my biggest weaknesses here, learning to move faster and slower so I can fall at the same pace as everyone. The other thing I was really working on is called tracking or moving forward horizontally. And this was something I was still struggling with to this point, as you can see. Thankfully, even with a smaller parachute and with a weight belt that was making me fall faster, I was starting to nail the landings with my parachute and everything was a clean landing. Another day of doing 5 jumps. The first 4 we worked on a lot of different progressions, and the last one I just jumped by myself for the first time ever, like without an instructor, from 13,500 feet. I think my back is just sore. I was having a hard time stabilizing on that last one. I know my friend Joseph, who's like filming most of the stuff, he's doing like 9 to 10 to 12 jumps a day. I'm destroyed after 5. But it's 24 jumps total now. Finally getting close to the end. Another funny thing today was that I had to put on like a weight belt with like, you know, 6-7 pounds or like 3 kilograms so I could fall as fast as everyone else.
You know what time it is?
Time for the check dive.
A license check dive.
So finally, it was time for jump number 25, which is the minimum number of jumps that I could do to get a license. Now, I had to pass a lot of tests on this jump that I had previously failed. So I wasn't really expecting to pass. So I had a conversation with my instructor before it, and no one was really expecting me to pass. We knew that I probably had to do a few more, except this one turned out to be a little bit different. So we did a jump where both of us flipped out of the plane. Then I had to do 2 spins, which I did perfectly. Then I had to like go down fast enough, which I somehow also did right. Then I had to go like high up enough, slow down, which I somehow also managed to do. And then there was more tracking again, which I had to like catch up with my instructor while moving horizontally. And again, a little bit more going down and then tracking again to catch up with her. And then you can see she kind of like holds my hands and like does this little spinneroonie and then like high fives me and we leave. That was so much better.
So much better.
He passed it.
Nadir, my boy! Woo! How you feeling right now, actually?
That was the best jump yet.
That's what we were just saying.
All right, so I thought there would be a couple of jumps today, maybe 5 or 6, because I still needed to work on tracking and stuff. But the check dive was going really well, and then I landed, and then I talked to Emily, my instructor, and she's like, "Nah, I'm good, I passed." So I just paid for the USPA license fee, and I'm certified. Now I'm allowed to jump out of a plane at any drop zone in the world with my parachute by myself, unsupervised. That is crazy. That is so cool. I am on a different level right now in terms of adrenaline rush. So the next day I woke up again and came to the airport as a licensed skydiver who was finally allowed to do fun jumps with people. I was finally allowed to do jump in my normal clothes instead of my funky looking student suit. I could jump out and do as many flips out of a plane as I wanted and do like these fun little formations with other skydivers. We're like trying different patterns in the air and getting thrown about in the air with other people who know I can handle the sport. So that sums up my incredible and sometimes very stressful journey of becoming a licensed skydiver. This pushed me to the edge of what I thought was possible, tested my will to not give up after failing time and time and time again. And it made me reach the highest heights that I've felt from doing any kind of physical activity in my life. In some ways, this has almost changed the way I look at life. And now I have the license to pursue that mystery third goal that I was talking about at the very start of the video, which was actually wingsuit base jumping. So that's something I wanted to do when I was 17. But am I gonna still try to do that? Probably not, because as I've gotten older, I realized how easy it is to die doing that particular sport. And I don't want to die yet. There are a lot of other things I want to do before I die. So maybe I'll do it after I'm done with all of those things. But for now, I do want to keep skydiving more though. And I want to get to the next level of license so I can do other cool technical things. Now I'm going to talk about the other reason I felt like this course has been the right thing to do right now. And it relates to things that have happened in my life in the last year. As many of you know, my mother my favorite person, passed away almost a year ago from now. As a way of coping with that, I have been trying to change up my life a little bit and taking on new challenges. Now, this includes making minor changes in my life to have a healthier life, or taking on the most grueling 16-day course of my life that tested me in every way. My mom's passing has also served as a very important reminder for me for an important lesson, which is that you can't take life for granted, and you can't save all the things that you really want to do in life for the end of the life, because you don't know when that end might come. Thankfully, I think that my mom left us with no regrets of things that she really wanted to do and that she didn't get to do. Whenever it's my time to go, and it's your time to go, whoever's watching this, I hope that we can say the same thing, that we lived our life to the fullest. That's it for this video. If you like this video, feel free to like it. And if you want to watch more videos like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And if you want real-time travel updates and see other reels and stuff, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Nadir on the go. I'll catch you guys in the next video from I don't know where. I'm in Indonesia right now, and that video was like a while back. Let's see where we end up.